The sun dipped low on the horizon as the group of friends trudged through the dense forest, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of pine needles. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, and the distant murmur of the lake whispered through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. Alex, the adventurous one of the group, led the way, his backpack heavy with supplies clinking softly with each step. He glanced over his shoulder, flashing a grin at his friends. "We're almost there, guys. The dark lake awaits." Sarah, walking beside him, rolled her eyes playfully. "Do we have to call it that? It's creepy enough as it is." But Alex only laughed, his excitement infectious. "Come on, Sarah, don't tell me you're scared. It's just a lake." As they emerged from the trees, the lake spread out before them, its surface like a sheet of glass reflecting the fading light of the sun. But despite its tranquil appearance, there was an undeniable sense of foreboding that hung in the air. They quickly set up camp, pitching their tents near the water's edge. The fire crackled to life, casting long shadows that danced across the rocky shoreline. They sat around the fire, roasting marshmallows and swapping stories, but underneath their laughter, there was a palpable tension. As darkness fell and the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, the sounds of the forest took on a sinister edge. The gentle lapping of the water against the shore seemed to echo like whispers in the darkness, and the rustling of leaves in the wind sounded like distant footsteps. But Alex, ever the optimist, brushed off their unease. "Don't worry, guys. It's just the wind playing tricks on us. Tomorrow we'll catch so many fish we'll forget all about this spooky stuff." But little did they know, the true horrors of the dark lake were yet to reveal themselves, lurking just beneath its murky depths. The morning sun cast a golden hue over the lake as the friends prepared their fishing gear for the day ahead. Despite the lingering unease from the night before, they were determined to enjoy their time by the water. Alex cast his line into the lake, the bait sinking below the surface with a soft plop. He squinted against the glare of the sun, scanning the water for any sign of movement. But as the hours passed, their fishing trip took a strange turn. The water remained eerily still, devoid of the usual signs of life. Not even a ripple disturbed its surface. Sarah reeled in her line, frustration evident on her face. "This is ridiculous. I've been fishing for hours and haven't even had a nibble." Alex frowned, his brow furrowing in concern. "That's strange. This lake is supposed to be teeming with fish." Just then, they noticed something moving beneath the surface, a dark shape slithering through the water, its form obscured by the murky depths. Mark, the quietest member of the group, peered into the water, his eyes widening in alarm. What was that? Before anyone could respond, the shape disappeared, leaving them with a sense of unease. As the day wore on, more strange occurrences plagued their fishing trip. Shadows seemed to dart beneath the surface, and odd sounds echoed through the trees. At one point, Sarah wandered off to explore a nearby trail and returned pale-faced, claiming she felt like something was watching her from the shadows. Alex tried to reassure her, but his own unease was growing by the minute. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that something sinister lurked just beyond their line of sight. And as night fell once again, the true horror of the dark lake began to reveal itself, casting a shadow over their idyllic fishing trip. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of crimson and gold, the friends gathered around the campfire, their faces illuminated by its flickering light. But despite their attempts to banish their fears with laughter and conversation, a sense of unease lingered in the air. Mark glanced nervously at the dark expanse of the lake, his hands clenched around his fishing rod. "I don't like this, guys. There's something not right about this place." Sarah shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her shoulders. "I agree. We should have listened to the warnings and stayed away." But Alex, ever the optimist, tried to lighten the mood. "Oh, come on, you two. It's just a lake. What's the worst that could happen?" Little did they know, the worst was yet to come. As they sat around the fire, swapping stories and sharing jokes, a sudden scream pierced the night air, sending chills down their spines. They sprang to their feet, their hearts pounding in their chests. "Mark, was that you?" Alex called out, scanning the darkness for any sign of his friend. But Mark was nowhere to be found. Panic gripped the group as they fanned out, searching the campsite and the surrounding area for any trace of their missing friend. But all they found was Mark's abandoned fishing gear, the rod still dangling over the edge of the lake. "He wouldn't just leave his stuff like this," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Their search continued into the early hours of the morning, but there was no sign of Mark. Desperate and exhausted, they huddled together around the dying embers of the fire, their minds reeling with fear and uncertainty. And then, just as they were about to give up hope, another member of their group went missing. Emily, the quietest and most reserved of them all, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only her empty tent and a sense of dread that hung heavy in the air. With two of their friends gone and the darkness closing in around them, the remaining friends realized that they were not alone at the dark lake, and that whatever lurked in its depths was far more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. The night seemed to stretch on endlessly as the remaining friends huddled together, their nerves frayed and their senses on high alert. Every rustle of leaves in the wind, every splash in the lake, sent shivers down their spines. Alex paced back and forth, his mind racing with fear and uncertainty. "We have to do something. We can't just sit here and wait for whatever took Mark and Emily to come back for us." Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "But what can we do? We don't even know what we're up against." Just then, a chilling howl echoed through the trees, freezing them in their tracks. They exchanged terrified glances, their hearts pounding in their chests. "We need to stick together," Alex said, his voice firm. "And we need to find out what's out there." With that, they gathered whatever weapons they could find, makeshift spears, rocks, anything that could be used to defend themselves, and set out into the darkness, determined to confront the source of their terror. The forest seemed to close in around them as they moved deeper into its depths, the moonlight casting long shadows that danced across the forest floor. Every sound, every shadow seemed to come alive with menace, and they held their breath, waiting for the next sign of danger. And then they saw a dark shape moving through the trees, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before, a twisted abomination of nature that sent chills down their spines. Without hesitation, they charged forward, their weapons raised, ready to face whatever came their way. The creature lunged at them with a savage roar, its claws slashing through the air. But the friends fought back with everything they had, their courage and determination driving them forward. Blow after blow, they struck at the creature, driving it back into the darkness from whence it came. And then, with a final, desperate effort, they delivered the killing blow, the creature collapsing to the ground in a heap. As they stood over its lifeless form, their breath coming in ragged gasps, they realized that they had survived the horrors of the dark lake. But the true test of their courage was yet to come, as they faced the long journey home, haunted by the memories of the nightmare they had just endured. The night air was heavy with tension as the friends stood over the lifeless body of the creature, their hearts still pounding from the intensity of the battle. The adrenaline coursing through their veins masked their exhaustion as they surveyed the scene before them. Sarah let out a shaky breath, her hands trembling as she lowered her makeshift weapon. Is it dead?" Alex approached cautiously, nudging the creature with the tip of his spear. When it didn't move, he nodded grimly. "Yeah, it's gone." Relief washed over them, but it was short-lived. They knew they couldn't stay at the lake any longer, not with the darkness still looming over them. "We need to get out of here," Mark said, his voice urgent, "before whatever else is out there comes looking for us." Agreeing with a series of nods, they quickly packed up their meager belongings, their movements hurried and frantic. The fire was left to smolder, a silent marker of their brief but terrifying encounter with the unknown. As they made their way through the forest, the first light of dawn began to break through the trees, casting long shadows across their path. But even in the growing light, the sense of unease lingered, a constant reminder of the horrors they had faced. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the trees, freezing them in their tracks. They turned as one, their hearts pounding in their chests, to see a pack of wild animals emerging from the shadows. Without hesitation, they broke into a run, their footsteps echoing through the forest as they fled from the pursuing creatures. Branches whipped at their faces, roots tripped them up, but still, they pushed on, their fear lending them strength. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they burst through the trees and into the clearing where their car was parked. With a collective sigh of relief, they stumbled towards it, their bodies bruised and battered, but their spirits unbroken. As they drove away from the dark lake, leaving behind the nightmare that had nearly cost them their lives, they knew that they would never forget the horrors they had faced. But they also knew that they had faced them together, and that was what had ultimately saved them from the darkness that lurked in the depths of the lake.
The road stretched out before them, disappearing into the distance as they drove away from the nightmare that was the dark lake. The morning sun painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, a stark contrast to the darkness they had left behind. Inside the car, a heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the soft hum of the engine and the occasional sigh of relief. The friends sat in exhausted silence, each lost in their own thoughts as they processed the events of the past few days. Finally, it was Sarah who spoke up, her voice quiet but determined. "We can't let this experience define us. We survived, and now we have to move on." Alex nodded in agreement, his grip tight on the steering wheel. "She's right. We may have faced horrors beyond our wildest nightmares, but we made it out alive. That's what matters." Mark glanced out the window at the passing scenery, a haunted look in his eyes. "I don't think I'll ever forget what happened back there." None of them would. The memories of the dark lake would haunt them for the rest of their lives, a constant reminder of the fragility of existence and the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of their reality. But as they drove away from the lake, leaving behind the nightmares of the past, they also left behind the fear and uncertainty that had gripped them for so long. In its place, they found a newfound sense of strength and resilience, forged in the fires of adversity. And as they drove onwards, towards a future filled with uncertainty, but also with hope, they knew that they would face whatever challenges came their way together, drawing strength from the bond that had been forged in the darkness of the dark lake.